guys, in this video we are going to talk about birds. And so I have a little bird here with me. This is Jack Sparrow, even though she's got her feathers now and I'm pretty sure it's Jackie. But Jack Sparrow fell out of his nest about 2 weeks ago, and Mama never came back to the neighbor's house, and the neighbor didn't know what to do with little nestling Jack, so we took him and had been feeding him, and now he's getting our feathers and getting all big and flapping around now. So this is Jack Sparrow, and I figured we had a video about birds. We got to talk about birds. So why not put the bird in the video? So talking about birds, let's start off with characteristics of birds. They have feathers, super easy. Birds are gonna have feathers. It doesn't have feathers, it's not a bird. Their forelimbs are going to be modified into wings. So they are a tetrapod, and the front two limbs are wings. They don't always fly with those wings. Think of penguins. But they're still wings, or ostriches. They are going to, here are their pretty little wings, and we said again they're tetrapods because all of these indicate that that is a trait of the common ancestor. That they have the same bones that we do, just slightly different. So common trait, it's a tetrapod. Birds are tetrapods just like us. They are going to have lots of different types of beaks depending on what they eat, what they've evolved to eat, how they catch their prey. Their beaks will look differently. I've got another video later on in the PowerPoint on the different beaks. From Cornell, which is really, really good. It's a good video. So they're going to have beaks. They lay eggs. We will talk about an exception in the mammals group that lays eggs, but in general, they're going to lay eggs versus our reptile friends. Our reptile friends are also going to have eggs, but you know, traditional bird eggs, we've got come in all different sizes. We all are probably mostly familiar with chicken eggs. But they're in all different sizes, from the chickadees, who's really small, to our eastern bluebirds, or a much larger one, the great blue heron. If we were in my face-to-face class, I'd let you see my emu egg. It's really big. It's not quite the size of my face, but it's almost there. It's probably like this big, and it's pretty cool to see. So they're going to lay eggs. They're going to have a calcium shell on their amniotic eggs that allow them, just like the reptiles, to move away from the water. As far as evolution, we'll get to that in the next video too. But remember, we talked about reptiles, and that was like everything in this whole group here. And then out of the reptiles, we have these were the bird hips. These were the lizard hips, Saurischia. And then here's the actual birds. Aves is birds. So birds are just fancy reptiles. Now, we know this. 100 years ago, they would have laughed at you if you said this. But now we know that birds are just descendants of reptiles. So they came from a group called the theropods. And these were going to have our velociraptors out of Jurassic Park. It was that same group. They started to develop. Here's all of our different ones. So here's our dinosaurs. There's the bird hips. Here's our lizard hip group, and then our birds are all the way up here. And our theropods, this group here, they started to have feathers. Some of the group within started to develop feathers. They probably weren't flying back in the day. Like this guy here has feathers, but he's not flying around with those feathers. They probably helped for thermal regulation, because we are switching over from being cold-blooded, from being a poikilotherm, whatever's out there, whatever temperature we're around is whatever temperature our metabolism at, and we're switching to having homeotherms and regulating our body metabolism and our temperature. And so feathers help them do that. Evolution of the theropods, Velociraptor, Archaeopteryx are really bridge between birds and reptiles, and then our modern day birds over here. Archaeopteryx, you can see this fossil discovery with the feathers was a breakthrough when they found this dinosaur with feathers on it. That was our bridge that we needed, just like we had the bridge that we needed to get from people to our common ancestors. This was a huge bridge for us. So Archaeopteryx, and we could see this fossilized feathers attached to it, was really pretty cool. Again, our lizard hip ones and our bird hips. We can see where his pubis is over here, going from reptiles and going into birds. So when we started to change from reptiles into birds, it was a process, just like we've seen in those pictures before, of slow evolution, small gradual changes, and those adaptive changes benefited those animals, and they were able to reproduce, and the changes kept going. So feathers was an adaptation that kept going. Being able to have lighter body weight. We're going to go into all of these again later on in the PowerPoint. You got to rearrange the muscles a bit because you're going to have emphasis on wings to get away. We're going to need to have an energy-rich diet. If our metabolism is much faster, we're going to need some better food, some higher quality food, and not just eating, once a month like snakes can. We're eating possibly every 30 minutes. I know baby Jackie eats every 30 minutes of the time, every day. They've got to have a better circulatory system. We've got to have a better respiratory system to match the circulatory system. We've got to be able to get the blood and the nutrients to the muscles. We've got to be able to get the oxygen to the muscles. So we've got to increase our circulatory system. We've got to increase our respiratory system. And their nervous system is super cool. It's faster processing on the senses than ours is. So we'll get into all of this. So first off, feathers. They are going to have a rachis that goes down the middle right here. And I've got this picture of the great here, and I should probably move this picture out of the way. I probably will. By the time I fix this video, I'll fix the PowerPoint for you. But we can see all of these different types of feathers. There are basics on the feathers. You're going to have contour feathers, and that's everything that we're seeing here in this great blue heron, who's got this beautiful plumage. On this heron, I don't think this is a great blue heron, but it's some kind of heron. And the contour feathers are the ones that we're gonna see. If you can still see Jeff, I think she's hiding someplace back in my hair. The contour feathers are what you're going to see on the wings. We're going to have primary feathers, and those are going to be on the outermost part of the wing. And again, I wish we had the face-to-face class because I've got a duck wing spread out that everyone can see a wing spread out, and you can put your fingers on it and check them out and see. But we're going to have primary feathers, and the ones closer to the bird's armpit would be these secondary feathers. Every feather, every one of these contour feathers, it's going to have this rachis that goes down the middle, and off of those are the barbs. So it's kind of like, here's our spinal column, and here are the ribs coming off of it. And then with the barbs, they're going to have barbels, and those things are going to have kind of, it's almost like Velcro, these little bitty hooks that interlock between them. So if anybody's ever played around with a contour feather that's of decent size, you can run your finger along those barbels and you'll see them when they're perfectly aligned. They look like the pretty little feather, but you can get them misaligned and the hooks will snag onto other places and it won't look like the pretty feather. It will, have gaps in it. So that's because of these little barbels that you find coming off of the barbs that come off of the rachis in the middle of the feather. Birds are going to have underneath those the soft fluffy stuff. So if anybody has pillows made out of this, I got a brand new quilt made out of down feathers that I was super stoked about for my hiking trips. Down is the soft fluffy stuff. So this is going to help them insulate. So we've got contour feathers that they are going to use for flight to get them up and elevated And then we have down feathers, the soft fluffy stuff underneath that, and that's like the downy hair on their pet dog. It insulates, it keeps them warm. And if you've ever seen, again, blow up these PowerPoints to the slideshow view and click on these videos. If you've ever seen a bird puffing up, I don't know if I can get Jack to puff up, but if you've ever seen one puffing up, they do that. They get their feathers sticking all out, like they're kind of like agitated, but they're not really. They're just puffing up. And when they do that, the air gets increased in the gaps in the feathers, and that warms them up. They'll puff up, they'll get this nice little puffy cloud of warm air, and then that insulates them. And the more spread out the down is, the higher filaments they've got in it, the warmer it is. So if anybody has looked at, I don't know, a down coat, and it gives you the down that it's stuffed with, the higher the down filaments, the more insulation value there is. The lower quality, like 500 versus like 900, are going to have lesser quality down in there, and it won't keep you quite as warm. But the down keeps them warm. When they puff up, it puts the air in between all the little barbels, and it's a nice puffy warm cloud for them. So another adaptation, they are going from the ground to flight. So literally they have to drop the weight. They've got to drop the weight. And one of the ways that they can drop the weight is through their skeleton. They've got to be able to get off the ground. And so they have changed their bone structure to where they're basically hollow. They're going to have all of these trabeculae, these arches and little places all through here that do give it structure, but it has large, massive pockets through it. So that allows their bones to be very, very lightweight with this kind of skeleton. So very lightweight skeleton. This bird here in the pictures that I've got, these guys, they're huge birds. They're really big. They're 7 feet tall, 7 feet wingspan. These are called frigate birds. And so they are 7 feet in their wingspan from tip to tip. So think about how tall you are, and that's taller than you from tip to tip from their wings. But despite having a 7-foot wingspan, which is really large, the whole skeleton on that bird weighs 4 ounces. 4 ounces. That's ridiculous. So their skeleton, again, is hollow. It's got pockets all throughout it, and it makes it super lightweight. Their muscles, they are going to switch around. So they are still going to have large muscles in their legs, of course. And the birds that are more on the ground will have larger leg muscles. But birds that are flying, which is most of the birds, their pectoralis muscles are where it's at. So if you're looking at your chicken that you want to eat, that's all tasty, and you go and get the breast meat, that's those pectoralis muscles. So those are what are functioning to move their wings, and that's why they're so big. Their leg muscles. So the pectoralis muscles are the white meat on your chicken. The leg muscles are the dark meat. So white meat, the wings, they got to get away really fast. White muscle means that it's fast movements. The dark muscle means that it's slow and steady and continuous. So the legs are going to have dark muscle. They're not going to have any muscles in their feet so much. They will have a locking mechanism. We've got all this musculature up here on the thigh, top of the leg. The feet itself, not a whole lot. But they can lock their legs in place. And so that helps them. Here he's sleeping on his branch or his post in the cage. They can lock their toes around that and it's just locked in place, and they can sleep that way, and they're not going to fall off the tree branch in the middle of the night because they've locked in place. It also helps raptors when they lock their prey in place, because most birds that are going to predate on other things capture their prey with their beak, but raptors use their strong feet to capture their prey. So here we've got a raptor, and it's crazy. It's an osprey, and he's got a shark that he has caught, and it is stuck in his talons. and he's going to bring it back to the nest and eat it up there. So their legs have this mechanism that they can sink in and just lock it into place. Their beaks, they are going to have all different types of beaks. Again, they are adapted for whatever use that they are eating. Are they, seed eaters? Are they insect eaters? Are they filtering out, krill and shrimp in the water like this guy who puts his head upside down and filters out his food with his beak? Are they diving for fish? There he is. And taking just big old gulps out and then capture the fish in that gulp of water. And he's caught it. So their beaks are adapted for different things. Pointy, spiny ones, wedge-shaped ones to dig into dried wood, wider ones that are, more like nutcrackers for the seed eaters, pointy ones that will eat insects, all different beaks for all different adaptations. This is the video I was telling you about from Cornell. If birds are your thing and you're thinking about going into biology and you want to specialize in ornithology, Cornell has an amazing, amazing program. They also have wild game feeders that you can watch on their campuses, on their sites, where you can see it 24/7 and just log in and watch their bird cams on their feeders. They've got a free app called Merlin that you can download on your phone for bird ID if you're finishing out your animal project right now and you need bird ID. The Merlin app is free. So Cornell's got some really great stuff out. And this video is 13 minutes long, so it's a little long, but it's a great video talking about all different types of birds and the way that they look and why they look the way that they do because of their environment and what they eat. So pretty neat. I've got pictures here of the different woodpeckers. We have the pileated, this guy. Ivory-billed were extinct, and then there were some claims that somebody heard it, and then there were some claims that somebody caught it on film, I believe in the 80s, but nobody has seen it since. So it's this whole question of, is it still around or is it really extinct? And that was not the right thing. So it's a neat story about the ivory-billed woodpecker. If you've ever wondered how they can do that, how they can bang their heads on trees and not concuss themselves, because we certainly cannot do that. We are not built that way. If we did that, we would have a concussion. This video is kind of cool to explain the physiology behind how they're able to do that. As far as digestion, they are not going to have just one big round stomach. I believe most of us saw this when we dissected the pigeon. They are going to have two areas when they bring their food in. They will have a crop. That's this guy here. So they're going to, take their food and gulp it down. They're not chewing it up in their mouth. They're just taking bites and gulping. And when they gulp it down, it goes into the crop, and that's going to be their storage compartment. And then it will get ground up in the next place, which is the gizzard, which is further down. And sometimes they'll have stones or pebbles in there to help grind up the food. But that's going to be the grinding area. It's got the musculature to move it around. The crop may have milk, or if you were a mama bird feeding a baby bird who has hidden away again. Mama regurgitates food to feed baby, and that food has a little bit of milk in it, and it's going to have some fats in it. They have a lot of fat and protein in the food that they feed for their babies, and that's coming out of the crop. So here's the crop, and here's the gizzard. How efficient do they need to be? They're pretty efficient at digesting food. In the video that I've got coming up later, I've got a video about owls. They can digest a whole mouse in 3 hours. 3 hours, all of it, all the way through. Berries, if it's a seed eater, if it's a plant eater, berries in 30 minutes. This one seriously eats every 30 minutes, sometimes faster. And it's just amazing how fast that she'll go through her food and out the other end. So they're really efficient at their digestive system. So then they are going to crop as the number one, gizzard, and then we end up in the intestines. So we've got the duodenum, jejunum, ileum, and that's where they're going to release more chemical digestive enzymes, and then they will absorb. And then when they're done with it, it's going to go down the colon and into the cloaca. And that's where the waste, the poop, would go to the cloaca, the everything compartment. And we'll touch back on the cloaca later. But that's GI coming down, swallowed down the esophagus, goes in the crop. It's going to be stored there, and then later it moves down to the gizzard where it's ground up and digested, and then all of the absorption happens in the intestines down here, and then the waste will be brought down the colon and into the cloaca, and then eventually the bird will go to the bathroom and let that out. If a bird is a plant eater versus a meat eater, we've talked about this before. The ceca is going to be longer for the plant eaters. They're going to have more bacteria and archaea in there that help them break down the material in that cecum than an animal that eats meat. A raptor will have a short cecum. So we can compare the length of these. Here we've got 19 centimeters for the red-tailed hawk. That's a raptor. We have a lot of those around in this area all the time, crying out. You'll hear them talking. Chickens is 46. The emu, 130 centimeters. And the ruffed grouse back down to 29 for their body length. So different cecums for different animals, and it just depends on what their diet is. This is craziness over here. Look at that. It's just so big. Moving on from the GI tract. Their circulatory system. We said that they're moving more. They are having to be, they're homeothermic. They are going to have to maintain this high metabolism. And so we need a circulatory system that can do the job. So we are moving up. We have now officially moved into 4 chambers. We said the reptiles were sort of kind of there. They had like 3 chambers unless you were a croc or an alligator, and those guys had 4 chambers. Birds have 4 chambers. So we will need to know that they have 4 chambers. We need to know the flow through there. And remember that they have 2 circles, 2 circuits, like we mentioned in the reptiles. So we're going to have the blood come in from the body. The top of the body is coming in here. The bottom of the body comes in over here into the right atrium. So that's one of our first chambers. It's going to go from the right atrium down through the AV valve into the right ventricle. And then it's going to leave the right ventricle and go out to the pulmonary tract, to the lungs. Lung. And over here is another lung. So it can go down, it's going to branch out and go down the lungs. It's going to get oxygen, and now it's going to come back on the pulmonary veins. Oxygen is back on the pulmonary veins, and it's going to enter under the left atrium. It's going to come down from the left atrium into the left ventricle, which is chamber, the 4th chamber so far. And then we're going to leave the left ventricle, and we're going to go out to all the rest of the body, out the aorta. So no body, and then it will come back. Know the circuit, that there's a pulmonary circuit that goes to the lungs and comes back, that there's a systemic circuit that goes out to the body and comes back. Know that the heart has 4 chambers, that they are endotherms, that they need this to regulate their environment, to regulate their personal environment versus the environment that they're exposed to. In general, heart rates, when you compare big animals to small animals. In general, the bigger animal, the slower the heart rate. We got 93 beats per minute for this turkey. The smaller the animal, here we got a smaller animal. So now we're going from turkey to chicken, 250. And then from chicken to chickadee, 500 to 1,000 beats per minute. So almost 10 times faster if we round this up to 100 over here to get 1,000 beats per minute. So in general, the smaller it is, their heart is beating so fast. They are working so hard, and they need to take in so many calories to maintain this metabolism, to maintain these heartbeats and do all of this work and all of this energy. And when they don't get that energy, say you're a hummingbird and it's late at night, they will go into a hibernation mode called torpor, and they'll slow things down because you can't maintain that high metabolism. You can't maintain this all the time. 24/7. You got to be able to sleep. You got to be able to rest. So they'll go into torpor at night. Different organisms will do this. Another advantage, they have biconcave blood cells just like we do, except we have to have our nucleus. Our nucleus leaves. Their nucleus stays. Their nucleus stays because we had to give ours the boot because we kept more hemoglobin in our cells. Our red blood cells' job was nothing but to transport gases, move the oxygen, get rid of the CO2. So to do that, we decided to put more hemoglobin into the blood cell and get rid of the nucleus. Our red blood cells don't live for very long now. They only live for 120 days tops. Their red blood cells contain the nucleus. They can do this because their respiratory system is way more efficient. So just because they don't have as much hemoglobin in their cells, their respiratory system is better. So then they can take up the gases and get them to where they need to go. So they have biconcave blood cells, but they have a nucleus when we don't. Their respiratory system, speaking of respiratory system, is super cool. It's one of the most efficient out there. So the way it works, and I'm going to want you to know the way it works. There's a video here that will explain it too, but it's going to be like a multi-step process. We're going to have the air. They're going to inhale, bring it in the air. The first stop is going to be posterior air sac, and it will branch off and start to fill the lungs. So that was the inhale. Exhale, it is now going to go from that posterior air sac up into the lungs. So now we're going to pull the oxygen and put it into the red blood cells that are in the alveolar areas surrounding the lungs, all through there. So we're going to exchange the gases in the lungs. So that's happening on the exhale. Then we're going to do another inhale. When we do a second inhale, that air from the lungs is now going up into the anterior air sac. And that's on the second inhalation. So we inhaled, and now second exhalation. When the bird lets it out, it's going to come out up here. So we have basically made a one-way track with the exception of the trachea. Once it comes down, it's going to come down the trachea, go in here, go up to the lungs, up to the anteriors, and then out, back out the trachea. So our oxygenated air is coming in one direction. We're going to pull off the oxygen. We're going to release the CO2, and that's continuing in that same direction. So it's not mixing. It's not mixing together like in our lungs where we pull out the oxygen and the CO2 gets released and it's all in the same place. This is a one-way track. So this is the most efficient that's out there that we know of. So super cool. I do want you to know the airflow through the lungs, through this, so it's posterior first, then lungs, then anterior, then out. So know the airflow through the bird's lungs. It's very, very efficient. It's so efficient that when humans try and climb Mount Everest, because the oxygen levels are so low, everyone knows most people don't make it. Those that do make it have to be in very good shape because, again, the oxygen levels are very, very low. It is a very difficult climb, and it is tough on your body. It is going to try and kill you up there. It's not made for us. We can't handle that, but birds can. Birds can. So this guy, the bar-headed geese, he migrates over the top of Everest. Totally fine. It's cool for him. because they have this advanced respiratory system that can keep up with their oxygen needs, and they're okay that way. We can't do that. Excretory system, so their kidneys. Reptiles were moving away from water. They had to be more efficient with their water uptake. Birds are too. So we need to be able to keep as much water in our system as we can. So we will pull out what we need out of what's flowing through. We're going to use our kidneys to filter the blood, get rid of the wastes, pull out the water that we need, and anything else that we don't need will go out of the kidneys as excretion, and it'll go down the ureters, and eventually it's going to end up in the cloaca for the bird. So we'd already said that the waste, the feces, was going to come from the GI tract, and that ends up through the rectum and at the cloaca. So now we have pretty much poop and pee in the same place. So when you see a bird go to the bathroom, you are seeing the uric acid that's in the pee, in the urine. That's uric acid for reptiles and birds mixed with the poop. So you'll see the white pea stuff, and then you'll see the poop, and it's all in one place. It's coming out of the cloaca. It comes out of the same hole. Again, my friend calls it the everything hole. But she's a vet, so I let her get away with it. They use uric acid. We are going to transform our nitrogenous waste into urea, but birds and reptiles, uric acid, that's the white part of the bird pee. Nervous system. I was telling y'all that their nervous system is very developed as far as senses. Their optic lobe right here is a pretty good size as far as senses. They will be able to see and detect things and process sight, process visual signals. They will be able to process auditory signals. What's going around on them, and their ability to process it and process it quickly is better than ours is. Their hearing, I've got a really cool video talking about how they can hear for their structures is really neat when we compare it to ours. They can't hear quite the range we can, but what they can hear is a little more efficient at certain frequencies than others. The way that their ears are structured, some birds have this where their ears are on the same level. All the birds are going to have ears, by the way. Some of them are really hard to see. If I had pictures of Jackie when she was a baby and she didn't have any feathers, you could see this hole where her ear is, and now she's got her feathers and it's all covered up. If anybody's seen a picture of a vulture, they don't have the feathers there, and you can see the hole. So they do have holes for their ears. They don't really stick out like ours do, but they do have holes. On owls, their holes are in two different places, and that gives them an advantage because not only can they hear the direction where it's coming from, is it coming from the right side or the left side? If it hits the right side first, then I know that that's where the sound is coming from closer than if it delayed on the left side. It has to be coming from the right-hand side if I hear it on the right side versus the left side faster. But what about these two different heights? That gives them the ability to figure out the depth. If they're above the animal and they hear the sound and they hear it on this side first, then they know about how far, because this one is going to be higher. They can judge about where the height of the sound is coming from. Is it coming from below me? Is it coming from above me? About how far down do I think it is? It's definitely on the right-hand side, about this far down. And they can guesstimate about where the sound is coming from. So if you watch this video about how the owl can hear and hunt its prey, even if it can't even see it, it's pretty neat to watch and learn about it. Speaking of hearing, I've got another one. This SciShow, I think is what this one is, talking about the range of birds and what they can hear. Look at the SciShow. Maybe it was the bio guy. Oh no, this is it. For the sight is a neat one. So as far as their seeing, their hearing is really cool. The way that they can hear is cool. Their sight is better than ours. I'm just gonna say it. We have rods and cones, and they have rods and cones. And so your rods are gonna pick up your shadows, light versus dark. Those are gonna be your rods. Your cones are going to be your color. So cones start with a C, they pick up color. So we have cones that are going to detect, it's kind of like your printer colors, right? You've got your red, and you've got kind of your green, yellow, and you got your bluish kind of cones, and those are what we can pick up. They have an extra cone. They can see UV where we can't. Um, on our eyeballs, we have one place in the very back. If you're looking at the retina on the back of the eye, we're going to have this place called the fovea centralis, and that's our spot of highest visual acuity, where we can see the best. If we are focusing on something, we want to move our eyes to where that thing is, it's dead on our fovea, and we can see all the details that we want. So we'll move our muscles in our eyes to focus on that and get it to shine on the fovea centralis. Some birds have two. They have two. So this video here was kind of funny. It's the crash course guy, but he's with a different company now. But they're talking about how they have two foveas. So they equated it to a macro lens that helps you see the stuff really close and in detail, and then a zoom lens where you can see really far. And they have two of them in each eye. So that's pretty cool that they have two foveas. One downside though, so it's not all great. They aren't mobile. Their eyes don't move. Like we have 4 muscles that run straight back from our eye that move around, and we've got 2 muscles that run catty corner that move our eyes around. So we can look this way and that way and up and down without moving my head. I can move my eyes. Birds can't do that. So what they do is they have to move their head to look at something. So if you've ever seen a bird and you're like talking to it and it looks at you, it gives you the look, it has to move its head to see you, to put you into focus. So this video is pretty cool. I don't know if it'll play for me. Maybe it will, and we'll be able to see it. But you can see, yay, maybe it'll work. It is. See how he is so focused on his prey. It's a kingfisher. We have some of these in Partersville, by the way. And he is watching that prey. He is looking at that minnow down in that water, and he's so focused on it, no matter what his body's doing, he's keeping his head steady because he is focused on the prey. So I thought that was pretty cool to just see that really fast. Go back to the PowerPoint. And the pectin. Pectin is this structure right here. We don't have this. We have vasculature running all through the retina on the back of the eye. They have pectin, and the pectin is going to increase their oxygen and nutrients to the eye, so they don't have vasculature running all around the back of it, because when they are trying to focus on something, sometimes that vasculature will be reflected and block our vision of stuff, while theirs don't. They don't have that same experience. So that pectin allows them to not have the vasculature in the area where they really need it with that pectin. So lots of really cool advantages. They can, again, we said they have those cones that can pick up UV. What does that look like? Well, we can see here, normal light on this, what is it, an owl? It looks like an owl, but I can't tell. Maybe it's a hawk. But some sort of raptor wing here. And then look at it glowing, totally different in the UV. Indigo buntings are birds that we have all around the Cartersville campus. These guys are insectivores, and they look like they're all blue, but when you put them under UV light, there's changes in their coat coloration and their feather coloration too. Indigo buntings were one of the, I told y'all I took ornithology at Auburn. And the professor that was in charge of ornithology that taught my class, he did some studies on indigo buntings and was able to pick up the UV. And then he also did some studies on house finches, which was pretty cool. Another cool thing about birds and their vision, we said that their sensory, their nervous system is so fast that they process things. So when I'm sitting here talking to you in this video and I'm processing it and you're processing it, and it looks like a movie to you, to a bird, it would look like a picture slideshow where every time an image shows up, there's this gap. That's how fast they process images. So they process images and they process sound way faster. So they have to be, because they're moving, at crazy amounts of speed through the air, and they have to be able to process images and sounds fast enough. Otherwise, they're going to crash into stuff. So their processing of senses is pretty neat. evolution of fright is where I'm going to left off. So I'm going to do the next video starting there on Thursday.